Are we ready? Okay, this is Emily Hitchcock sitting in for Andy Smith, Chair, who is absent today. I call to order the meeting of the Oconee County Conservation Bank Board. Also present today are Laura Havron, Scuddy Walker, and Charles Vanover. We have a quorum, so we will begin. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the November 9, 2021 minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Laura, second by Charlie. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call the vote. Is there, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. The second item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Laura Havron.
Okay, the treasurer's report for the Community First Bank account ending in 183, period ending October 31st, 2021. The monthly opening balance was $14,985. The deposits on 10/1, the first one was for $20 from the Horton Law Firm for the, is it Tycohea?
Tycohea.
Tycohea closing. And 10/07, $200 from Waterside Crossing. And on 10/14/2021, $35 from the Morris closing. For total deposits of $255. Total expenditures were $10,000. The bank balance as of the period ending date, October 31st, 2021, is $5,240.
So was that $10,000? I forgot to check that. That was that the Peggy Morris?
I think that's the Morris closing, because that's the only
Yes.
closing listed.
Okay, that's the Peggy, okay.
Mhm.
And those deposits from the Morris closing and whatever the other closing are, that's where the board gets reimbursed for either the transfer fee or the certified check fee that we show.
Okay. All right. The treasurer's report for the local government investment pool for period ending October 31st, 2021. The monthly opening balance was $316,549.18. The deposits were a reinvestment of interest for $27.90. There were no expenditures. The balance in the account as of October 31st, 2021 was $316,577.08. And then the treasurer's report for the local government investment pool period ending October 30th, 2021, the opening balance was $316,577.17. The only deposits were a reinvestment of interest in $29.19. There were no expenditures, and the closing balance as of November 30th, 2021 is $316,606.27.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion by Charlie, second by Scuddy. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Oh, any opposed? No, it's unanimous. Fundraising and public relations report. Do we have a report from Laura? I think you're the
Yes.
only one on that committee.
That's here, yeah. I did, November 1st, I made a presentation. It was the PowerPoint presentation that we worked on, for the past year. And I was able to give that for about 30 women at, what was it called? Now that I'm saying this. It's the one that supports Collins Home.
Oh,
Cosmopolitan.
yeah.
The Cosmopolitan Club. Anyway, there's about 30 women there, and so I gave the presentation with the slides, very interested, lots of questions afterwards. And afterwards, one of the people came up and asked for a brochure, which I had some that I had printed off, very poor quality, and we could use some better quality ones.
I think I have some in the office.
Okay.
I'll give them to you.
Anyway, I gave her one, and she was pointing out that they're getting to the point where this year they have to take their minimum distribution from their IRAs. And she goes, we're looking for places to donate. And she goes, I'd like to recommend this to my husband. So I thought, that was good. That was good.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
yeah, so if you guys know of any opportunities to present to any groups, let me know, because, I'll be happy to go do it if we can generate some interest.
Okay.
That's a good thing. But that's all that's, I think, happened in the fundraising front, so.
Okay, that's a big one. Any other reports that might relate to that? Okay, thank you, Laura. Under the discussion items, the first thing is the September 21, 2021 minutes. And if you looked, because you're probably wondering why this is coming up, if you look very closely at those minutes in the backup materials, you'll see it was dated September 19, 2021. That was just an error that we did not catch when we approved the minutes. I believe the backup materials have the correct date, and because that's what we need to approve today, is that it was September 21. September 19 not only was not the day we were meeting, it was a Sunday. So I think we can all be confident that was just an error. Do I have a motion to approve the revised September 21, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Laura, second by Charlie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? It passed unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the draft policy 0005. This would be a new policy, transfer of property interest. So before we can discuss, we need to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Laura, a second by Scuddy. So, discussions.
I was kind of curious why we had not had this before, or this discussion hadn't come up before, just out of curiosity.
The big thing is that no one had thought about it, and we now have heard that Max Stone at Natural Land Trust is in discussions with the Forest Service about transferring that property over on Rocky Gap Road in Mountain Rest.
Okay.
And this was reported at one of the meetings that you weren't there.
Right.
At several of them. But this really drew our attention to the fact that the statute gives the board authority that transfers can't be made without the board's approval if grant funds are used, but we did not have any process for doing that. And we realized that we really do need a process. I do want to point out a couple of things. The first one is, there are a couple of minor things that I don't really need to discuss, but the one, number 4, I had used the existing deadlines, April, for applications, April 1, August 1, and November 1, when I drafted this. And in large part because of Andy's absence, I haven't had much opportunity to toss around the ideas. And one of the things that occurred to me is that those deadlines are established in the ordinance and other deadlines, like how long we have to approve and all of that. But in terms of the approval of the transfer, it just says it has to have the board's approval, and there's no other discussion. So I did not know if that was really what we wanted to do, if we wanted to just say they had to get it it had to be considered at a board meeting because we have no deadline about how soon we have to approve it. I have drafted the application that was attached so that we at least get information. They don't just kind of show up and say, hey, let's do this, but we have information about the property and the new purchaser, because we really need to vet them. But I didn't know whether or not that was appropriate, so I wanted to throw that out for the group.
Yeah, I don't think we need a date like that. I mean, that's, the application process is totally different and takes
Yes.
much longer,
Mhm.
and you need time to consider it. And I think as long as we have it, and I don't know if you can say, so many weeks before a
Okay.
meeting, because Jennifer, for stuff to go in the backup to send to us to be considered at a meeting, what's the deadline for that having to happen?
So I try to get you all of your stuff by the Friday before the meeting. I would really be easiest if I could get it like the Monday, Tuesday before. Yeah.
Because I think that would be the deadline, because you never know when something might, I think, come up, and why restrict it to only 3 times a year? When
Yeah.
they may want to
Mhm.
make the transfer outside of our deadlines, and why, I don't think we should be restricting it. I think
Yeah.
it should be just an administrative thing of you need it to send to us ahead of
Well,
time.
and we would need it, maybe it should be like 2 weeks, because we would want to look at it.
I think it should be a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Do you really?
I'm thinking it should be, I think the date that's critical is whenever the transfer is actually made, okay? And.
Well, it can't be made until we approve
Right,
it.
but that's the date that you back up from.
Yeah.
Okay? And, there can be lots of ins and outs to consider in something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we may end up getting an application, looking at it, and going back and asking a bunch more questions. I mean, we can't confine ourselves to a 2-week period for something like that.
Okay. I don't
We do
think
it.
we would have to approve it at the meeting, at that first meeting, but you're right, the applicant might think we would and be relying on that.
So I would think.
I don't think they would think that they'd get an automatic approval. I mean, you'd think they would?
And if they're going that far, I think they probably would think that it's a box that needs to be checked, which it may or may not be. okay?
Yeah.
You know? I would think that you should, require that application be received like 6 months before an anticipated closing.
6 months, okay.
That gives you time to work with it.
Are
Okay.
they always going to know that much in advance? I don't know. I mean, a lot of times when we close on an application, they talk, we've had it in several applications where they talk about down the road, they want to transfer it to the Park Service or DNR or the Forest Service. So we already know that this might come up at some point.
Mhm.
And that's part of the application process, is
All
vetting.
you're doing is say, you can flip what I just said around the other way, that they know we have to have the application in advance, 6 months in advance of closing, then that's when they set their closing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if they're dealing with somebody like the Forest Service, it's gonna take years. That's gonna be the window. I mean, our 6
Yeah.
months is gonna be a minor subset of that,
Scotty, any thoughts?
I agree with Charlie, it's 6 months.
Okay. Well, here's what,
We
What
would
I
have, we would
would-
have 2 or 3 meetings at least during that time period where we could deal with that situation. We
let's,
don't have to give them their
yeah.
approval until the day they do it, but I'm sure they want it before.
well, we have to do it at the board meeting before,
I know, but
but, yeah.
that could be that day.
Like I said, there are a couple of other things that I would like, that I think need to be cleaned up. So what about, I just throw this out, what about if we think about we basically have, because I think that's the most significant thing left in the policy, and it is significant. So if we can always adopt it at the February meeting. Nobody's going to be coming to us, I don't think, at the February meeting. But if they do, and we'll say, well, we're about to adopt this policy. But we still have to vet them. If somebody should notify us before the February meeting, we would still have to vet it and say, we either had time or not time, depending upon what information they gave us.
And sometimes it's better not to have a policy.
Yeah, and sometimes it is. But I do think this is something, and it may be that this policy is too long with that in mind, because I think we do need to set a time for when they have to, and and the application that gives us really the information we're going to have to ask them for anyway.
Right.
But, and I think y'all can see what I'm kind of getting around. Do we want to think about it some more? And one of the things I was thinking about is, I don't know if we have any of our applicants listening, but when we did our original policy for the application process, we did ask them for some, for their opinions on the policy. We did not accept all of their opinions, their suggestions, but we did find some
We
of them.
did, which, yeah, we asked, we wanted to know, was it too restrictive? Is this a problem? What,
Yeah,
does it cause a problem? Is this easy?
yeah.
They gave us good feedback, so
Yeah.
I think we could do that again.
So, if we want to do that, we would first have to vote down the motion on the table, which is for approval. And then we would have to figure out what we wanted to put in what is item number 4, and have a motion to send the draft. And I can just put it as alternatives. Or I can, is there kind of a general consensus that put in 6 months and see what? Okay, then, okay, first, let me call the vote. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Okay, well, let's have the vote on the transfer of property interest. And, hi, Ryan. So the minutes can reflect that Ryan Keys joined the meeting. If you want to give us more time, the motion on the board that we're voting on is to accept the policy as written in the backup materials. So, if you don't want to do that, you're going to vote no. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
And what's the motion?
The motion is to approve what was in the backup materials. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, it is unanimously denied, whatever the right word is, Jennifer.
Okay, so you made the motion, but then it was,
But then it was voted
it
down.
did not pass.
Yes. So now we need a motion to send the draft to I think so far we've had 4 applicants, to the known applicants. That would be, let's see if I'm right, Upstate Forever, Soil and Water,
Neutral end.
Natural Land Trust, and the applicant for Crawford Mill was not Soil and Water. Do you remember who it is, Ryan?
I didn't bring my stuff.
Let me see if it's on that report.
Wasn't,
Let's see. Oh, it was Soil and Water,
yeah, I know, they're the ones
holding the
holding the
conservation
conservation
easement.
easement.
Okay, so actually, we only had the 3. So do I have a motion to give the applicants an opportunity to comment on the draft policy number 0005?
You do, as long as you have a time frame on it prior to our February meeting.
Oh, yes. I would
Their
think
feedback
that
prior.
their comments would have to be back by, let me look at that date and make sure, but by February 1, let me look at that. The meeting date is February 8th. If the comments have to be back by February 1, is that sufficient, or should we make
In
it?
order for her to get them distributed, whatever that time frame is you were
Yeah.
talking about a while ago.
That would give you a week? Would
So
that
you
be-
want them to comment give us comments in writing as opposed to showing up and verbally discussing it. So you
Yes.
want an email? Okay.
Yeah.
Who does the email come to then?
Hey,
It would come to
and
Jennifer.
I can just forward them to you.
And she would
as they
forward
come
them.
to me.
I tell you what, let's back it, how do you think it say about January 20? Because that would give us a chance to all look at them. Jennifer, if you could forward them to us once they're received.
I mean, somebody's always welcome to come to the meeting and
And comment, yes, they could still come to the
Right.
meeting and comment. But if they give us written comments in advance, that would be useful in terms of our being able to think about them, and because we do need to vote on that. So, does anyone want to make that motion?
I will,
Okay.
I suppose you want me to say it now.
Do you want to, yes,
Yes. Say, I make a motion that we make the revised proposed policy changes available to the group that you came up with there a minute ago, or
The
what
applicants.
about known
The three
applicants?
known
known
applicants.
applicants, that's right.
Okay.
Known applicants requesting their feedback on the proposed policy prior to January 20th, 2022.
Got that, Jennifer? Okay.
And do you need something relative to the change that we made included in that?
No, I will make that change and some others.
Okay.
And give it to, that are just Scrivener kind of things, because it's still just a draft.
Right.
But that was,
Okay.
and I can let you know let y'all know what it is. There was a word left out in number 11, and in number 1, there is a sentence that I think needs to stand alone. And so I will make those two changes as well as this. And if I read it and see other changes, other typos, I will do that. But anyway, we've got the motion. Did I have a second?
Second.
A second from Scuddy. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, it passed unanimously.
I do have a question.
Yes,
Will you get this policy to those applicants, or is that me?
I will get the policy to you, and then if you could send it to the 3 applicants, you should have their names and addresses.
Okay.
Um,
Can you tell me their names real quick?
Okay, it would be Max Stone for Natural Land Trust, Eddie Martin for the Oconee Soil and Water District, and Chris Starker for Upstate Forever. I just think it is better coming from the liaison.
Well, that's who they have to respond to anyway.
Yeah, they have to respond to you, so that way, and it can be by email.
Okay.
And if you need any wording with the email, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything official, but just let me know.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the OCCB ordinance. And just to let y'all know, David and I did meet subsequent to hearing from David Root, the county
Okay.
attorney.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. Hearing from, I can't remember who, from the foundation at the last meeting. And I have to revise the ordinance to include that, to include the appropriate language for his review. And I have to, and I'm also going to include a requirement that if they are purchasing fee simple title, that they must have a conservation placed on the easement at the same time at closing. Now, that is obviously something we just discussed. We will discuss some more. I did ask David about whether or not that was legal, and he thought it was legal and a good idea, but that doesn't mean that the board ultimately has to vote on it. But what I'm saying is at the February meeting, you should have something that has his final approval. It's
Emily,
just the
I have a question.
holidays. Uh-huh.
The language that we got inserted that states we have the unilateral right
We did not get
Was
it
that just-
inserted.
we
That
didn't?
was there at the very beginning. This is not something new. That was so every single grant that's ever been issued was subject to that.
So is this just kind of an extra layer that would
What?
protect us, the
The-
requiring a conservation easement on fee simple
Yes,
transfer?
and we don't, and the board can reject that suggestion. The suggestion came, and we had a little bit of a discussion at the last meeting. Enough so that I felt like it was time for me to talk to David Root about it and get it in there. But the idea behind it is kind of twofold. One is that it then assures the board that there is going to be, the protection is in fact going to be permanent, enforceable. And one of the things that I have personal experience, and I'll just let you know that, working with a state agency in Georgia where there was a situation where there was some property that was under a permanent protection from the governor's executive order, and it was recorded, but everybody had forgotten about it. So even though we are requiring language in the deed, and it didn't, nobody discovered it until Great Big Highway went through the middle. So that kind of is, I know that the conservation easement folks will do it. But separately from that, because I don't think that would ever happen here, because we are requiring people make annual reports to us, and the county has the right to go look at the fee simple property. That does place a burden on the county if we get very many fee simples, for them to try to send somebody out who's not experienced at it, this isn't their regular job, to make sure that the conservation purposes are being done. So those were kinds of the things, we had thrown out even the concept of possibly removing fee simple completely. I had thrown out a couple of options. One would be removing fee simple, one would be keeping it the way it is, one would be adding the conservation easement, so they could get a higher degree of funding by getting funding toward the fee simple purchase, but there would still be the conservation easement. But, so, again, the full board is going to have to look at that, because there are long-term implications, both for the county and for the applicants. So, but I am going to, with David's permission, I'm going to throw that in there. It'll be like a very simple thing. Ultimately, if the board decides not to, it's easy enough to delete it. The more complicated thing is removing the language that Andy had drafted and coming up with something that allows us to do an endowment that probably it will be something like we can enter into a contract with a company that has an endowment where all the funds are going to the OCCB, and that we have the power to do fundraising to support that endowment. And that's, it looks like that's going to be the best way if we're going to have an endowment. So. Okay. Any more discussion on, or any other questions on the ordinance? Okay. The policy, revised policy 0002, bank account. I know y'all approved this at the very last meeting, okay? And I want to promise you that I will make every effort not to have it back here at the February meeting. There are only two changes, and the big one that prompted this is on the checklist. When Jennifer and I were dealing with a closing and old closings, we discovered that nowhere on the checklist was there the project name. And we were going around based on the dates, figuring out which project it was. And so we decided we've got to get that on the form. And then the second thing was I added the closing deadline because that makes it very easy. I'm hoping that hopefully Jennifer and the board chair will start, as soon as it's approved by the county, start keeping this. Because otherwise, we have to go back through the file to get all of these dates. But we have to do that because one time there was something that needed to be done that wasn't done, and luckily we remembered, but we had to call a special meeting. So, anyway, but I put the closing deadline on because that is the 1 year, and if they don't ask an extension, it says, one of the things is, if requested, a closing extension was approved, and I figured we needed to know what was the date where if they haven't asked for an extension, this is a no-go. They can't close without coming back to us and actually filing a new application. The other change was in number 8. It said a certified check, the disbursement of grant funds by wire or certified check, and I deleted certified check and said just by check. It can be a certified check. And again, I checked with Mr. Root, the county attorney, to make sure that there was not a legal reason that it had to be certified, and he said, no. We have a checkbook. We can save the certified fee thing, and actually, this came up with regard to the, what closing are we working on? We're working on the Whetstone Hill closing, because Upstate Forever said, if y'all can write a check, it's a local attorney, they're gonna pick it up later today, and they could avoid having to reimburse us for the cost of a certified check or wire transfer. So this was the applicant going, we just want a regular check.
Does that include any amounts of money? Because most attorneys require anything over, it's either 25 or 50,000 have to be certified.
Yeah, well, we can do it by certified.
Yeah.
If the closing attorney, a lot of closing attorneys, even for smaller amounts, don't want a personal check. Right. And
I found they can do it if they want to, though. I've seen them do amounts that I didn't think they could, and it was personal check.
yeah,
I mean-
and one of the things I was talking to David Root about, of course, this is a smaller, our funds are usually much
Yeah,
smaller than
yeah.
that. But this attorney, being a local attorney, also is very familiar with the board and the financial status and whether or not the check is good, for example. But if the closing attorney requires either a wire transfer or certified check, then that's how they'll get it. But I just did not want by policy it required, because that's not what we're doing for the one tomorrow.
I mean, wire transfers don't cost anything.
The ones from Community First
Do
do.
they?
20,
Yeah, and the certified checks are 30 or something?
35, wasn't it?
35, I think, yeah,
30 or 35, yeah.
yeah. So that's the
I
reason,
think doesn't,
yeah.
well,
The-
anyway.
So what are you actually changing it to?
So that it just says check. And
But that doesn't mean it has to be a check.
no, it's wire transfer or check. I took out the word certified.
Got it.
I
Got
deleted
it,
certified so that it can be certified or it can be a regular check. It just doesn't specify that it must be certified. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the revisions to policies 0002? And I just noticed that the effective date, I'm going to have to start over with this motion. Today is the 14th. Because one of the things we're going to have to do is, oh no, that's correct.
The effective date's fine, because that's when it
Yeah,
first
because
went into
that,
effect.
yeah, I went through this at
Yeah,
home
it's the
once too,
revision,
and I
yeah,
did
the
the
revision date.
date is on there. Okay,
You're okay.
so do we have a motion to approve the revised policy 0002 as it was presented in the backup material?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Laura, second by Charlie. All those any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. The update on the approved projects. I think you had the form there. I can tell you this, the Whetstone Hill is scheduled to close tomorrow. And it will, and I just learned that Crawford Mill is scheduled to close January 14th. So, that's the update. our next round of, we do have a,
Emmy Morris is closing the Crawford Mill.
who is?
Derek Ritter Williams and Morris, Emma Morris,
Oh,
local attorney.
oh, yes, she's the one closing Whetstone Hill, so she's also closing Morris? Okay, well, that's very good, because we'll use another check, and we'll have the system down for her
Yep.
this time.
Yeah.
We'll know what we're doing, won't we? I told her she kind of had to put up with my not knowing how Andy usually handled the closings. So we don't have anything else on the agenda, so, oh, yes,
I should have mentioned this up under fundraising, and it just.
Okay.
occurred to me.
that's fine.
My understanding was is that kind of the original money that this board uses came from Duke Energy.
Yes.
Whenever they did their relicensing.
Yes.
Okay, 20 years ago, whenever. They're going through another relicensing now.
Mhm.
Is there an opportunity to go back to Duke and ask them for another,
I think Andy did.
did he?
I
Yeah.
think he did about a year or two ago.
This is-
Man,
this
I
is
might
like
be
a-
wrong.
This
I
is
can
like a
check.
3 or 4 year process to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think they were kind of like, no, enjoy what you got, you know?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but I mean, it's worth, I can check into it. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just
Here's the
curious.
thing with the relicensing process.
Yeah.
That was part of a settlement where they had not complied with the terms of a previous relicensing obligations. And so when it came time to relicense, various conservation groups objected to the relicensing because of their failure to do what they had agreed to do.
I see. I didn't know that.
And so, as a settlement, they had to agree to do certain things on the ground. And then they also made a number of donations to various conservation
Yeah, we
groups
weren't the
for
only one.
various
Yeah, we weren't
conservation
the only one.
purposes.
it was a big,
It was a really, really big,
Well over $1 million.
yeah, wait.
oh, it was more
Emily,
like a
maybe
couple
you
of
should
million.
threaten them with
Couple mil
something legal. Make a
What?
threat that
There are people who watch them much closer than I do and know whether or not they are complying with it.
I didn't know that story.
Yes, yes, so that's how we got it. It was not out of their just general largesse.
Yeah, it did not come through their foundation where they give grants and that.
No.
It came, it was,
Ask Shay Airy how hard it was for us to get that money.
Yes,
I mean, it took a while.
yeah. And even after they had agreed to it, the licensing process is so long that even after it had been agreed to in principle, it was a long time before the feds accepted it, because it was
Years.
all part of the relicensing. And then it took a little while to actually get the checks issued. So, so that's that story.
That's fine.
And this is this discussion, I don't know if you want to just say, if it's proper under the fundraising and public relations, if you can just add a sentence that we also discussed the funds that were received in the past from Duke Energy, or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know how
just
you
put
do it,
more
Jennifer.
Whatever in there, it'd be fine.
Yeah. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Laura, second by Charlie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it's unanimous, we're adjourned.
Are these ours?